mum's mental health got to a point where she was getting in bad relationships with new people who, you know, abused her, treated her like crap, and spent from 16 to like 20 watching that, hearing it. And then once mum was out of these relationships, that's when the aftershock come, because that's when, you know, my mum turned to drink. She's becoming an alcoholic.
When I got home from the hospital and I had a 5-day-old baby at that point, my husband decided it was a good idea to rape me.
In hindsight, I was suffering with depression.
Do you know what? You can put yourself in another person's shoes and have empathy and go, actually, I get why you're feeling like that, and say it's okay to feel that way.
Everyone's got a story, and it all carries a powerful message.
Head Cases Podcast, hosted by Damo Sims and Nick Stoppani.
Hello, welcome to episode 3 of Head Cases Podcast with my colleague Damo Sims and myself, Nick Stoppani, Britain's freshest mental health talk show. Now today we'll be talking to a guy called Josh who's had brushes with the law, he's faced racism, and he has actually gone on to work within the area of mental health.
Yeah, well, actually, Nick, I have met Josh before.
Okay.
And found him to be such a lovely guy, quite an imposing figure, but great big heart on him. Nice, like I say, really nice chap, very warming, and great conversationalist. Really is.
Lovely. Fantastic. Well, looking forward to the conversation with Josh shortly. We do have a WhatsApp number that you can get involved with the show. And you can send us your text messages or your voice notes if you're feeling brave. The number is 07822 010 819. And of course, if you're outside the UK, because we do have people listening all over the world. Mm-hmm. All over the freaking world, Damo. This is so exciting.
We do.
Please use +44 and omit the first 0. So again, the number is 07822 010 819.
Yeah, and of course, we also have a list of helplines and websites available on the Head Cases website, which is headcasespodcast.co.uk. And you will also find links to our social media channels there. And also a big shout out to Penny from Hope Found in ME.
Yes.
Who sent us a voice note on WhatsApp. She posted a comment on our Facebook page saying, a really compassionate and kind podcast. Thank you so much for featuring my voice note. Much appreciated. I feel very fortunate to be included. Well, Penny, thank you so much for taking the time to get involved with both Nick and I. We really, really do appreciate that.
Yeah, we sure do. So I tell you what, if you've not listened to episode 2, go and check it out because it features the fabulous Penny. Oh, yeah. Well, what a woman. Fantastic. Yeah, yeah. And you know what, Damo, I think hopefully one day we'll actually get Penny on as a featured guest.
Oh, hopefully. That would be really good. Yeah, I'd like to do that. And before we do speak to our first guest, Nick, I've noticed that there are people on social media who use their platform to help people in such a positive way.
Oh, that's fantastic. But you know what? Yeah, actually, I told you about a guy called Alex who, he had a TikTok live demo and I joined it. And I'll tell you what, it was wonderful. And I have been told by Kelly that you have caught up with Alex to find exactly what he is doing on TikTok Live.
Yes, I did, Nick. And I started by asking him if he could tell us the reasons behind his decision to start this TikTok Live related around mental health.
So TikTok Lives in general, I've been doing for about a month.
Okay.
But I've been on TikTok for about a year now. I've been qualified as a psychotherapist for nearly 3.5 to 4 years. And a good friend of mine suggested that I go on to TikTok as a platform to potentially bring some awareness to some topics that were of interest to myself. So I started doing some videos, gaining some followers, and eventually took the plunge to go and do some lives, which has been met quite well with the people who join them.
Yeah, I've had a quick look at some of your videos, and you seem to have this kind of like charisma. It's very hard for some people to do that on camera. Normally, if you point a camera at somebody, then they kind of cringe and they collapse and they can't. You come across very, very warm. There's a bit of humour in there. There's a twinkle in the eye sometimes when you're on about certain subjects. But you're also giving across some really, really important points, which I think is really refreshing for somebody to be able to do that in this day and age. Is it something that you find natural to do? Is it something that just comes out of you as you're talking?
Being in front of a camera, I don't know why, but I do love it. I do like the idea of, I always wanted to actually have my own sort of show if possible, whether that's on TV or even, funny enough, some sort of a podcast platform. And I've always had that confidence in me to stand in front of audiences and crowds. So I think being able to apply the knowledge that I've learned at the same time always brings that confidence on a higher level, because then I obviously know what I'm talking about and I can obviously apply that to the videos that I'm stitching most of the time as well.
Okay. And also, you've been doing it relatively a small period of time, doing it live. You say you've been doing it for about a year on TikTok anyway. Has there been any kind of really fulfilling moments of hosting the live on TikTok? Can you tell us about a couple of those incidents?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a men's mental health check-in twice a week, and I also do a general mental health check-in almost every day. A couple of times a week I'll do a debate, because there's quite a lot of trends and quite a lot of, I suppose, debates that are quite heated that continue to flow around TikTok, and I like to share my opinions on them as well. I think what's really nice to see is that there are a lot of people, especially young men, I would say, who don't necessarily know where to go for support. And within the first couple of weeks, I found quite a lot of men who were expressing and sharing their vulnerability on the live with me, but also with the people in the group chat who were there just as a support for the platform itself. And it was just met so well by the people who were there and exchanging messages within the live with each other. And some of the stories that these people come online to share are sometimes deeper than maybe the clients that I also work with. So being that person that they can maybe turn to and open up to, knowing that they are literally putting themselves in a very vulnerable situation, was a very warm feeling to receive.
Yeah. And I presume as well that you do have kind of, I suppose, reoccurring themes or concerns that seem to pop up. I mean, you say about men's mental health. Is there a reoccurring theme that seems to pop up an awful lot? Is there, a kind of a tip of an iceberg that you can see constantly and you think we should be addressing a bit more, especially as men?
I think there's quite a lot. I think that can be a loaded question as well, because the awareness that I raise is mainly around men's behaviour in society towards women. Okay. Aside from that, I also do raise an awareness for, men who don't feel like they have an outlet of any kind for their own mental health issues. So for me, I try to raise an awareness for a few things at once, which is why sometimes my debates and topics vary. But the majority of the time during the day, the reoccurring themes I'd say that I hear a lot is usually high levels of anxiety and stress and loneliness. I hear that quite a lot, especially from men. And obviously when they come here to my platform and I'm repeating to other people similar things, coping mechanisms and strategies to help support them through that, for me, it's really rewarding when you see them also coming back to the lives day after day, because they feel like they're gaining some value there.
Yeah, yeah. Can I also ask you as well that, I mean, obviously, you speak to an awful lot of people in these messages forward and backwards. Have you ever had your mind changed while you're talking to somebody? You've had a viewpoint at the beginning, and by the end of it, you thought, actually, they might have a point there.
It's a good question. I haven't probably done lives long enough to really know whether or not my mind has switched from one side to the other. But to give them a potential alternative to that is 2 years ago, when I was friends with someone who had very strong viewpoints about, as I say, some of the issues that were raised earlier. I would say that I was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum in my beliefs and my thought processes. And until I was open to exploring and understanding more about these topics, did I realize how potentially harmful my thoughts were to society and the people around me. And so I went on that journey myself to better myself, to learn, to educate. And I think what's really lovely about my journey personally is that I've transitioned into the point where now I want to raise that awareness for other people, because I know it's possible. I know people can change their mindset if they really open to the idea. And at that time, it was a little bit embarrassing for me knowing that that's how I, thought about certain things. So I thought it was really quite reflective And it gave me the opportunity to now be the person that I am today.
Obviously, it gives you growth as well, because it's like a two-way street, I suppose, isn't it? When you're speaking to people anyway, you can pick up on things that they, like I say, they might be right on, and it changes your mind, and that makes you a better human being anyway. So, now, all the power to you, mate. Also, one thing I wanted to ask you is, doing what you do, surely you must come across some kind of tricky moments. How do you handle navigate your way through challenging kind of topics and things that might arise while you're doing your live sessions?
I suppose being a qualified therapist, the training that you go through is understanding how to manage your emotions. And so whenever you hear things, there are quite a lot of comments that can be quite triggering. There's quite a lot of comments that can be quite offensive. And that's quite natural to have online because, it's open to the public. So people are going to come and share all kinds of things. And I suppose it keeps you on your toes, not knowing what to expect. So I do have some wonderful moderators who are watching the chat to ensure that certain messages might be muted. But equally, I do give opportunities to some people to come up onto the platform because I think, those that are very one-sided and on the opposite side to me, there's an opportunity there to offer a new perspective. And if people are willing to hear it, then there's also an opportunity for them to maybe change their mindset. So for me, it's quite challenging, but at the same time, very rewarding because I'd say I've had about 3 or 4 people already within a week who have had a very flipped mindset now on how they used to think compared to now. And that's really lovely to hear because for me, I think that's an amazing improvement and self-reflection that they've had in that time to better themselves as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you do a fantastic job. You really do. And it's a rarity, the kind of, like I say, the way that you deliver it is very unique. Definitely, Alex, I'm really looking forward to seeing some more of your TikTok videos, catching up with what you've been doing. And what's next for you, Alex? What is where's your journey? Where do you want to go?
I have only just started the lives, as I say, for about a month. And, I get quite a lot of gifts. I get quite a lot of followers and I get quite a lot of people that keep returning. So for me, in a month to have this much of an audience that feel what I'm offering is quite valuable to, a wide variety of the public, I just want to grow that. And if I'm honest, I would love to have a bigger platform of some kind. I just know that a lot of teenagers, again, especially men who struggle to reach out to maybe health professionals because of maybe how much it costs or accessibility, you're going to find them on social media a lot. And so for me, if they stumble across my live and they're able to just take something from that on that day, and potentially keep coming back to see what does Alex say next week or next, live that he does. I would just love to be able to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah. And Alex, if people do want to reach out to you, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be lots of people that do, how can they contact you?
So my TikTok is Lex_therapy. And that would probably be the best way because obviously they can drop me a message on there or follow me if they like. Not trying to obviously advertise myself in that way, but that is probably the best way to find my videos and find my content, but also be a part of the lives that I do. Where, as I say, there's a big community of people now who keep on returning because they feel the space is quite warm and safe. And people genuinely respect each other there and look out for each other.
Yeah, you do a fantastic job, like I say, mate. So all the power to you. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. And we look forward to the next stage in your journey, mate. So all the best, mate. And thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So there we go, Nick. Absolutely fantastic interview.
Wonderful.
Really, really enjoyed speaking with Alex. And if you guys want to follow Alex and see what he gets up to, then you can do on TikTok, which is at Lex, Lex _therapy. That's at Lex_therapy. What a wonderful guy to talk to as well.
And do you know what I like about it, Damo, is just the positivity,
Yeah.
Because social media can be absolutely awful, but Alex is using it for such a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Completely agree, mate. Completely agree. And there's somebody else who's got something wonderful that they want to say, because the next person we're going to interview is somebody that I've met, like I say, in the past, and somebody that I think's got a really important message for a lot of the people who are listening to us right now. So let's speak to Josh. Josh, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Now, I know we've met a number of times before, and we know each other quite well. You're a fantastic person to come on. You've come forward. Just for a start, why did you contact the show? What was your reason to contact us?
Yeah, so I think things like this, I'm really kind of passionate about sort of really carry forward that message, what they bring. And, in this case, I guess I felt obliged to kind of support your movement as well, knowing that, the message, what that gives to others. And as men, I'm particularly passionate, I guess, about empowering men to be vulnerable and comfortable within that vulnerability. So this is the perfect opportunity to open up that conversation.
Oh, do you know what, Josh? Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure. I've not met you. I don't know you. And I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. As Damo said, this is going to help other people.
Yeah, no, definitely. Most definitely. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. As I said, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm glad I can join you, at the early stages of it. And, I wish you all the success with it as well.
Most kind.
I'm sure it's going to bring great things.
Thank you. Josh, what might help us now then, mate, is if, like I say, I kind of know you. We've spoke quite a lot over things. But the listeners who haven't, and obviously as well as Nick, can we just... Let's go through Josh's life, if you don't mind. Can we go back to your younger years and just kind of walk us through your journey of life and how you got to be where you are, the trials and tribulations, the bad, the good, and let's just find out about yourself, because we're really intrigued to find out more about you.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So myself, I'm half Jamaican, half British. So my dad's Jamaican, British Jamaican, and my mum is white British. During childhood, I was raised by my mum. Sadly, my dad was, addicted to heavy drugs, growing up, not really feeling any sort of anger towards that, to be honest. Now I've got a better understanding about, how consuming addiction is. And obviously I do love my dad to pieces, but that's always been, a bit of a broken relationship, between myself and him. So, yeah, raised in an area by my mum, which was predominantly white. Sadly, growing up, I did experience quite a lot of racism. And, again, I think I've kind of emphasised this, in the past, but I think it's more kind of due to a lack of education and understanding. I'm actually friends with some of them people who I might have had them encounters with previously. And I believe they've grown, and obviously I've grown at the same time. Wow. So I'm a strong believer that people can change, that's for sure.
Do you know what? That is so nice to hear, Josh. That is so good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess like these kind of experiences, certainly make us, don't they? And growing up, I was kind of, I guess, your typical young man. Carried a lot of anger within myself, which I wasn't really sure how to express. So I think at times, I've probably been a little bit lost myself. And that's one of the main reasons I'm kind of here today as well, is to, kind of talk about how important it is for us to, be aware of some of the things we might experience and not suppress them, because I think a lot of the time, particularly as young men or, gentlemen, when we get a bit older, at times we can express things in the wrong way. So, whether that be taking drugs, carrying out violent acts, and being damaging towards others. Sometimes it's what's going on for us and we just kind of don't know how to get that out. So by having these kind of conversations and, being vulnerable, we can sometimes learn things about ourselves, which, obviously make our futures better and give us better opportunities within life. I think one thing in particular, what I kind of just like mention as well, because I think, it's very important to me, is when I was younger, I was actually involved in an altercation with a police officer where, an excessive amount of force was used, and they tried to push me over kind of a barrier within a road. First real encounter I'd had, and sadly during that, I was injured, and I was also a victim of racism at the hands of the police officer. It did result in me actually getting into some trouble with the police, and kind of that changed my landscape in life because, at the time I was studying public services where I was fortunate to get a distinction, and, there was some thoughts in my mind, to be totally honest, about potentially even joining the police force one day, because I'd seen some things even at a younger age, growing up what I didn't quite like, and I thought, culturally maybe, it's not a great place, and I was hoping I could potentially be a part of that change. Then having this encounter kind of, I guess, impacted me in, a lot of ways. So at that particular time, I wasn't, completely aware of how damaging that particular incident was to me and where it would lead me to in the future. So 18, first time I attempted going in the military, and I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit tough, to be honest. Being this young lad, and maybe having a little bit of attitude, and being a little bit tough-headed. I was like, I don't know what this is about. So I actually got out after 12 weeks, and I was like, right, okay, I'm making a mistake here. I thought, I'm making a mistake. Went back to sunny Stoke-on-Trent, and I was working in a call centre at the time, being a little bit of a rebel. Like I say, I haven't always been as good as I am today, because again, that's part of growth. But I went back and I reapplied again at the careers office. I was like, I've made a mistake here, because this was, a great opportunity for me. And at the same time, I'd also had my first child at the age of 18, a beautiful daughter named Tia, who actually turns 16 tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Can I just happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tia. Happy birthday to you. You should have started singing, Damo.
I'll be honest with you, mate. I was just in awe. I was in awe of your vocal talent. That's what it was.
Go on. Okay, continue, Josh. Continue.
So, I appreciate that, and I'm sure she will appreciate that at the same time.
Pleasure.
But time goes so quick, doesn't it? That was one of my main reasons as well, to be honest. I was kind of like, right, I've got a young daughter here. I'd had that, negative interaction with the police, and I really kind of wanted to make something of myself, and wanted, make the future better for my children, really, or child at that stage. So I went on to do 8 years in the military, just short in the end when I reapplied, and that was at the age of 21. I rejoined after having to wait a while. Had some great experiences during that, to be honest. Some not so good experiences, but met some wonderful people and truly got to understand what that family environment and, trust was about. Which, to be honest, I think kind of really hard to find in other places. At least that's been my experience. But when I come out of the army, or just before coming out of the army, should I say, I had a couple of experiences which kind of led me to the place that I am today, which, have kind of just, confirmed that what I'm doing, I'm doing for the right reasons. So, in 2017, just before deploying to Iraq, I sadly lost one of my friends who I'd served with in my first posting in Germany. And, through that, really, it kind of opened my eyes to mental health, if I'm totally honest, because maybe I was a little bit naive at that time. It started really with an encounter what I'd had with him where I hadn't seen him for a long time. And his name was Williams, and, I was like, all right, Williams, I haven't seen you in a long time, how are you doing? And he was like, yeah, I'm not too bad. Give him a quick hug as you do. I said, right, I'll catch up with you, a bit later. And we kind of left it at that. I carried on doing what I was doing because we had a number of things going on. And as a result of that, I kind of didn't pay much attention to why he was truly there, I guess. So I had to go on a course the next day. I went on a course which was like a battlefield advanced trauma course, which you kind of do before you deploy to anywhere, where you might obviously have to treat someone who's suffered, trauma.
Yeah.
So I come back really happy, about completing that course. We had a CPN who was located at the medical centre where I worked during my time in my last posting in the army, and he said, "You know Williams, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, sadly, he's taken his life." So. That was a kind of a big eye opener because at the time I felt an element of guilt because I was like, wow, I had no idea that was where he was at really, and like I say, I was busy, so I probably wasn't as aware. But the thing is, I guess with mental health is, it's internal, so we don't always know what's going on for a person. We can't look at a person and say, right, this is what they're dealing with currently, unless we have these kind of conversations and open up and be a little bit vulnerable about the things what we're experiencing, nobody's truly going to know. So we can feel very alone, in that moment, when that's not necessarily a true reflection, because we've got so many people around us who truly care about us or want the best for us. So that was sadly the first thing which occurred. And then just before getting out the army, I was in a music group when I was younger, so I used to like doing a bit of rapping, and there was this guy who kind of really encouraged me get into the music. And for me, to be honest, it was a great way to be able to express myself as a youngster, through the music. We all did a little bit of rapping and a little bit of, grime and things like that. And it was great, it was great. It was us expressing ourselves through music, having a laugh, having a social. And we had some great times. And his name was Ant. And sadly, he also died by death by suicide in 2018, just before I got out.
Right.
So again, at this stage, I kind of wasn't within the mental health field, but I was again like, right, okay, I had this passion and drive to do that before I left, and that's where I wanted. But then I hit a little bit of a challenge myself as well. Or when I say a little bit of a challenge, probably quite a big thing, because I ended up really struggling with my own mental health, because, this had happened. And then just before getting out the army, my relationship had also come to an end. I had all the uncertainty about what was going to be next for me, because although I had plans in my head, I didn't really know how I was truly going to make it happen. And I found myself in a real dark place. And having that level of understanding, and what it feels like to be there, in total honesty, it was one of the most scariest things I've ever experienced, to feel that I've completely lost myself, and to feel that the only option was to no longer be here. And, when I reflect on it now, and I look at where I am today, and I think about it, and, I haven't told a lot of people this really, because I guess I'm giving a bit more detail, but I remember family members saying, you can come stay with me. And I was like, no, I'm too tough-headed at this stage. I'm a closed book, so I carry on powering through things, and, I'm going to get through this, but I'm going to get through this alone. And on the back of my seat, I had loads and loads of tablets where I'd collected over. And, I'm going to say trigger warning, but I want to also be mindful of, the impact sometimes having these conversations can have on others. But I sat there with them, with in mind that I was going to end my life, and wow, it was scary. But I wasn't certain what kind of changed me from that mindset. But it was like I found something within myself where I was like, this just can't be the way that you go. It just can't be the way that you go. You've got so much more to come, and you've got to just keep on fighting. And I'm sure within the back of my mind, I had my children in my mind, because that's something what can protect me within that moment. If you ever feel low or feel like it's not worth being here, if you think about them, they push you to places that you wouldn't usually be. And as I mentioned earlier, that was one of the main reasons for me kind of going in the army anyway, because I wanted, to set an example really. As a result of that, it kind of changed my way of thinking anyway, these things which had occurred, and I've had this experience myself, and I started to be more open to the idea of receiving help from others, about being open about things and having these uncomfortable conversations. And, it wasn't easy. I don't think it is easy when you've kind of been very tough-headed and not usually spoke about things, to then be this person who has to go, right, I'm going to put everything on the table, and some of it's going to burn me. But you know what? When it does burn me, we're going to find a way to extinguish that flame, and sometimes you need other people to help you do that, if that makes sense.
Josh, that is so powerful. Do you realise what you've just said? Do you realise? Honestly, that is awesome.
Yeah, appreciate that, because, like I say, I mean, when I've come here today, I only wanted to speak from the heart, really, and that's all I can do, because, having this conversation, even if it does, save one life, that's enough for me, or, empower somebody else to have that conversation or reach out for help. And, at the stage where I was before I went in the army, and I was thinking life's kind of over due to that experience I'd had, and then pushing myself to that, and then coming out and thinking, right, this is what I've gone through. I've lost friends. Where do I see myself? And I was so lucky to have the support from the NHS really with my career as well. Although a lot of my qualifications didn't transfer, obviously a lot of the skills and experience which I'd gained throughout my career, obviously did transfer over to a job within the NHS. So I actually started off, at kind of, a healthcare level, which is like, the start of your career really. And then I worked in mental health from like 2018, and I've gone on to do a foundation degree, a nursing associate foundation degree. And I'm currently studying mental health nursing as a top-up degree.
Well done.
And I'm so passionate about it, as you can probably tell from this conversation, but I am just so passionate about what I do. And I just, want to try and help as many people as I possibly can, within my power, of course, and be a part of that journey with them, and support them through difficult times with an understanding of what it might at least feel like during them times, having had some personal challenges as well. So that's where I'm currently at. And I guess a part of that is, at the same time, for me, is being authentic within that role, because, if we're telling people, this is what we're suggesting, or maybe we should try this, we should also be trying and testing things ourselves. So it's been a journey of personal growth for me as well as professional growth, nice. Because I think that's what it has to be really, is because we're growing every single day, as people. And, sometimes I guess during that growth, it gets a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. The thing is, uncomfortable conversations are creating growth within yourself. I've written down a few bullet points here that I just want to kind of touch on. So, obviously, I'd like to talk about, because I know we met each other through this anyway. But you're kind of you're a black guy living in Stoke-on-Trent. You've faced lots of racism through your life. What was that like as a young black lad growing up in Stoke-on-Trent? When did you feel a victim? Did you feel that you needed to kick back? How did racism affect you as a young man?
I mean, to be honest, it did really impact me, but I think more so within my adulthood, if that makes sense. So when I was younger, I kind of felt more like I was in survival mode, and I had the wrong approach to racism really, because I always thought, right, if someone's racist, that means I've got to act in a violent manner, or I've got to defend myself in that way. It's difficult to explain, but I guess racism cuts really deep. That's just the truth, isn't it? It hurts you, and you're looking around you, and a lot of the time not everybody looks like you, so you can kind of feel a bit out of place, or start to question your own identity, or why aren't I good enough, or you know what I mean? It had all sorts of impacts on me growing up, really. That was one of the things, like when I was younger, I was kind of more like, well, it is what it is. I deal with it. And then I grew up, and obviously one thing I'll talk about actually, which I think is kind of important, is when the George Floyd incident occurred, which was obviously tragic and absolutely brutal, as we're all aware. Yeah. And impacted so many people, across the world. It kind of re-triggered this trauma in me, because it made me think about all the personal experiences which I'd had. And a lot of people had this misunderstanding about what it was about, bearing in mind, I'm raised by, a white British woman, a lot of my friends are white and from all different ethnicities and races and religions, whatever it might be. But what that was for me was an opportunity, to be able to be open about the things which had occurred within my life. Also to give other people space and an opportunity to be open about some of their own personal experiences. And for me to also be able to see that there was other people who had actually endured things very similar to what I had. Yeah. And how powerful that was. And lots of the people who I connected with during that actually, like I say, was a mix of people. It wasn't just, right, okay, it's us versus you, or, anything like that. It was, we're going to come together. It doesn't matter, where we're from or who we are. We're going to come together and we're going to have this conversation, which again is an uncomfortable conversation. And we're going to say it's not right. What can we do to make things better? What can we do so people don't feel like this? What can we do to give people that space to be able to get things off what they're holding on to internally, which are so damaging to them? And in some cases, by talking about them things, people obviously will get the opportunity to learn so much, things which are misunderstood. So a really, really powerful time, actually, and I think uplifting for a lot of people.
And educating.
Exactly.
That was the big point.
Exactly.
I believe that I was educated. I'm going to be totally honest, because I think that's what this show is about, Josh.
Yeah, of course.
During the Black Lives Matter, I put out a status and I said, all lives matter.
Yeah.
Which I still hold my hands up to that. All lives do matter.
Yeah.
But I think I missed the actual point. And, there was one particular person that actually took great offence. And if you know me, Josh, you know that whatever I do, I don't mean to cause any offence or upset to anyone. So that it affected me. It affected me.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise that this Black Lives Matter movement actually started quite some time ago.
Yeah, things like that again. I think, we have to kind of, we have to accept, that at times people, will put things up like that, that status, what you put up in that moment again, like you just said, was really a misunderstanding, because it's not about, all lives not mattering. Of course, all lives matter. But when there is something, occurring disproportionately, or people are facing, injustice, anyone who faces that will likely want to fight for justice in some way, however that might be. And I would have no problems, if my white counterpart was experiencing that, being by the side and saying, wait there, this is bang out of order. Let's stand together and let's, fight against this injustice, if that makes sense.
The way I look at it, and I think we should all look at it like this, really.
Yeah.
It is, there is one race, and it's the human race.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's how me and Josh actually met each other, was that we met on many of the Black Lives Matter rallies that are going on. And, and one of the most memorable moments has just come to me now, is that we were I think we were at Stafford, and it was quite a big rally that was going on. There was a lot of people there. And I can remember they got like the platform where people were getting up, and it was like an open mic thing where just people could go up if they wanted and say a few words. And I always remember there was, he was a gay lad. He got up, you could tell he was very feminine. He was wearing, like very feminine kind of clothes, nail varnish on and everything. And he got up, and you could see the passion of what he was saying and what he wanted to say, and he did this lovely little speech just off the cuff. And then at the end, he said, because the thing is, all lives matter, right? And I can remember a few people who were out there. Obviously, there was a few like kind of, no, you can't shout that, and there was like almost like a boo thing that kind of went on. And then out of the blue, in the middle of it, I don't know if Josh remembers this, I heard one solitary voice say, "No, we need to educate him." And the atmosphere changed completely. And that was a powerful message, because you could see this poor lad. He'd gone there with the intent purpose to stand next to all these black people that were trying to get a point out. And he wanted to be that voice for him. And he just fell foul of not understanding what it was about. That was a magical moment for me, because that was the whole point, I think, of a lot of these rallies, was they were just trying to educate people and make people understand what the plight was. Am I right there, Josh?
Yeah, totally, because, it was about love and acceptance, wasn't it, really? Exactly. And that's ultimately what it was about loving each other, accepting each other, and understanding each other at the same time, I guess, because in order to be able to do them things, we sometimes have to be able to understand each other.
And sometimes them conversations can get uncomfortable before they get better. That was the whole point, I think, of that.
Yeah, of course.
And just taking a slight turn here as well. I know you touched on growing up in that lot and being raised by your mother and your father. How much of a role in your life, do you mind me asking, your father played? Was he there for you?
I mean, my dad, I'll be totally honest, my dad wasn't really present for me, but he loves his children in his own way. And as I say, when you're consumed by addiction, obviously you aren't present in the same ways. So, no, the truth is it wasn't there. And really, to this day, he still isn't there, but he's there in his own way. And he's not the person who he was, all them years ago. A lot of changes have occurred for him. And, I'm very proud that's the case. But having the understanding I do now allows me to look at it through a different lens. There's been times where obviously I've been very angry about the situation, very sad, and confused, I guess. But some things out there which consumers are very evil and simply take over us. And that's all I really, have to say in terms of addiction, I guess.
Do you talk openly and honestly about your experiences with your father, with your children?
Yeah, of course, yeah, I do.
How important do you think that is for other people that maybe, didn't have what we call a normal relationship then? I mean, what is normal these days? Do you know what I mean?
It's a big part of, especially lads, again, this podcast is about all mental health, but the problem is that the only thing that we kind of specialist at, us three right now, is how men's mental health, because we're men, we understand how that affects people. And I know I was blessed that I had and still do have a good father, but I've got lots of friends who didn't. And I saw the impact, not on all of them. I've some of my friends who didn't have a father present, like yourself, Josh, who've gone on to be fantastic people. But some people will fundamentally say the biggest problem I had is I never had that father figure in my life.
That is spot on. Do you know what? And do you know what it reminds me of, right? I lived, Josh, I don't know if you remember a program called Darling Buds of May. Oh, it's gorgeous. Anyway, I grew up. My childhood was like the Darling Buds of May, and I lived in a village on a farm. It was fantastic. And it wasn't until I was 16 years old that I finally left the village, went to the big town, and I thought everybody not lived like us, but had a stable family, because that's what I had when I grew up. And I tell you what, I was so shocked to hear the amount of people that had parents that had split up or are splitting up, and it was an eye opener for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely important, and it makes a difference, doesn't it? But I was blessed to have, a mum, who no doubt has influenced the place, that I'm in today, and supported me throughout. She's actually a psychodynamic therapist. My mum is, has always been.
Can we book her, passionate. Josh? Can we book her on the show? Put in a good word. Something I just wanted to touch on, Josh. Right. You mentioned that you have faced racism. Did you speak to your mother about that? Because I'm guessing you couldn't speak to your dad.
I did, yeah, that's right, yeah. So I was very lucky to have, a mum, like I say, like mine, who was somebody who was strongly against things like that, who would advocate for me. She's been into schools and said, why is there no books of, black children depicting black children? And advocated for things like that, or when she's had calls from the school saying, your son's holding a weapon, and when she's digged a little bit deeper and it's a ruler, she said, you're stereotyping and things like that. My mum has been round people's houses when I've experienced racism, saying, what's this about, and trying to come to a solution, and receive an apology and get the parent to educate their child. She's always been a person, who has stood by me through any of that. And I was very fortunate, the background she has, psychotherapy. Yeah. She's always kind of encouraged us to be open, and she's always kind of said to me, you fight things with love, But being a bloke, that's not always. It's not always straightforward.
It's not. It's not.
That was my role model growing up. It was. She was obviously the mum and the dad, and then I was kind of looking at other guys and being like, right, okay, is this where I go? Is this what I do? And you kind of learn, I guess, and you learn to pick up your role models, don't you? You find male figures around you, maybe you think, yeah, that's a role model.
Let's move forward a little bit more, because I'm also really interested in, you spent a lot of time in the army. How was mental health seen within the army, especially around mental health with men? Did men speak to each other about the problems, or was there, because it's a very masculine kind of thing to go into the army?
I mean, not really, to be honest. If you're having a bad day, it was kind of, right, let's go down the boozer, which is an unhealthy way. Yeah. But I don't think it's uncommon either. You know, for a guy, he ring his mate and say, you know, I'm feeling bad. Right, okay, let's go get wrecked or whatever, you know. And as we know, the knock-on effect of that is alcohol, depressant, worse next day likely, you know. It's not going to get rid of the problem. Within the army, I personally don't believe that they were that great. And I know that that's the encounter of many others.
Why do you think that is, though?
I think some of the things which you're faced with, obviously, you know, you've got to be mentally and you've got to be physically strong. But at the same time, I think there is the concern probably around the functioning of the forces as well. Because ultimately, if anything occurs to you in there, they want you back in straight away, don't they? That's the reality. You know, so whether it be a physical injury or whether it be something mentally, what's going on for you, the aim is to get you back into action, you know, as quick as possible. And that's why, if anything physically goes wrong with you, you know, you'll get physio. If you need surgery, you'll get surgery. And if you need physio after surgery, you'll get physio to get you back into action. You know, that's what it is. You know, you're just a number at the end of the day. That's ultimately, you know, what it boils down to. I believe things are improving now from some of the conversations I've had with friends who are still serving. Yeah. And some of the conversations which have been opened up. But yeah, certainly at the time I was in, I didn't think that, you know, it was great or that it was encouraged for you to be having them conversations. And it's something which definitely needed a shift within the culture, you know, and I think they're continuing to kind of work on that, and they've implemented some kind of annual training which they have there now, and there are more people, you know, who obviously have awareness within the management side of things, and you know, are more supportive to the guys underneath them now as well.
What about when you've left the army, or you know, you decide to, for whatever reason? I mean, because you hear some horror stories, you really do. Is there continued support?
Well, I think this is the thing, isn't it? You know, there's not any follow up for anybody in the military, is there? You know, it's all that kind of a proactive thing. You know, so unless you reach out for help, really, you're not going to get any help, unless obviously it's been spotted within the military and maybe you're kind of left with ongoing care or whatever. But you know, if you're to leave the military, there's no follow up to check on your mental health when you exit, which, you know, in some ways I think that would be beneficial, wouldn't it? But it's currently, you know, non-existent. You know, and I guess that's kind of maybe what I feel personally as missing from the aftercare package, is some of the things you might have encountered during your career, you know, when you get out, will or may need to be revisited, and you may need support with. And sometimes that's obviously, I guess, one of the challenges what people can face is, you know, they've been in this environment which is very different from the real world, or civvy street as we call it when we're in the military. And then, you know, you've got 24 hours in the day, all your own decision making to do, and you might be faced with whatever trauma, you know, and you're left to kind of deal with that on your own until you say, wait there, you know, I kind of need somebody help me. But if you've just been in a culture where they've pretty much said to you, right, okay, you know, you need kind of suppress that, it's going to be very challenging for you to, you know, find yourself in a stage where you're willing to go, right, okay, I'll reach out for that help. So that's something I think it's important we emphasise as well, is, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking your metal jacket off and going, you know what, I need a bit of help and support here.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, it's so important.
Now, just another thing I really wanted to touch on. Now, of all the things that we spoke about, which are all really, really valid and important points, on a personal level, you mentioned that there was, and as long as you're happy to talk about this, Josh, obviously, that there was a particularly dark time in your life where you considered suicide. Just thinking now of other people that might be listening to the show right now and there will be people that are going through similar things. I was wondering whether you could kind of explain as much details that you feel you can do. Kind of what got you to that point, and what was the process going through your mind? Because the mind is really what obviously what gets you there. Can you remember kind of the build up to it, how it got to there, and the reasons why? Was it not talking to people? Was it suppressing it? Was it was it lying to yourself? Just tell us about that, mate. How you got to that point, if you didn't mind.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it was a series of things. I think I touched on earlier. So a breakdown in my relationship. End of, a complete lifestyle, I guess, about to move into, or at least go and try and find a new career. So there was all that uncertainty surrounding that, the loss of obviously friends, what I'd experienced in the build up to getting out as well, not having anywhere to reside. So many things which obviously contributed to me being within that place. But ultimately, what took me to that very, very dark place was being so shut off with what was going on for me. It's not speaking to people. And when people were saying, come here, we'll help you, saying, no, I don't want no help. I'll be okay. I can take the world on my own. And that's what got me. That's what ultimately led me to be into that place. Because at times in life now, I'll be totally honest that, from time to time I'll struggle now. But when I start to recognize that I'm struggling, I will speak to people, or I will go, right, okay, maybe it's going to be beneficial if I put myself forward for a little bit of therapy. Because therapy is healthy at the end of the day, and we don't have to be in crisis before we start saying, right, we need a bit of therapy, or we need to start talking to someone. What it was is delaying the process and not applying that self-care, and being very closed and not being open about, the feelings and emotions, what I was experiencing, and boxing it off myself, which is the wrong way to do it. We sometimes we just need people. Sometimes we just need help. We're only human at the end of the day.
Yeah. I was in, and I didn't talk a lot about this myself. I'm more than happy to, because like you mentioned earlier on, Josh, and me and Nick have mentioned this off air before, there was absolutely no point in us doing this show if we weren't willing to expose ourselves and put ourselves out there and bear ourselves as well. I went through quite a dark phase when I was about 18 years old, and it was the most bizarre and horrendous situation that I went through. Similar thing. And I can remember, it was so powerful. I won't say the gentleman's name right now, but I went to see a counsellor. I saw this counsellor once, and it was that powerful, the message he gave me, that I remembered his name from when I was 18. And what he said to me was, one of the biggest problems with people in depression is that what you do is, and he described it as, you can't eat the elephant in one sitting. And he says, if you've got a problem, deal with it, or at least put it in a little drawer in your mind, out the way, and deal with something else. But if you let all these little problems build up, and eventually they become so great that you just can't take it, and it collapses, everything collapses in, because you've now got too many things to deal with, and your brain just won't let. Humans are exceptionally intricate, but also very basic, and we can't control too many things at once. So would you say that perhaps the message you got there then is that what you needed to do was break everything down and deal with each problem singly, and then wait until you dealt with that, and then get the next problem and deal with that, so that you could put your ship in order, you got everything sorted out, and you could then be ready and prepared for the next time a problem came along, and you knew how to deal with that. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Yeah. I like how you kind of put that in. I like what was said to you there, and I think it's fair to say, really, I think sometimes that's what we do in it. We expect to fix everything, but we can't fix everything, all at once. Breaking it down and saying, okay, so what can I change? And this is the other thing, sometimes what we're looking to achieve is unrealistic for us within that moment, isn't it? So, I might get up tomorrow and be like, you know what, I've made my bed, but for 5 days I haven't made my bed. So it's counting them accomplishments as well and going, you know what, actually I've achieved something today. Because it might not be massive to someone, but in that moment, it's massive to me, if that makes sense. In my particular scenario, it was definitely, there was too much I was dealing with and thinking, wow, this is far too overwhelming. And again, it goes back to that, the kind of, pint glass water, you carry on putting water in it, eventually overflows, doesn't it? And that's the same with things on our mind. We've got so much what we can take within our brain. until it eventually goes, right, this is too much now, I cannot deal with this, so I'm going to start shutting down a bit, and it becomes difficult for us to deal with. So I quite like the saying, a problem shared is a problem halved, if I'm totally honest, because I do kind of believe that, I believe if we share it with somebody, sometimes it's that weight off us and it helps us get through that moment.
If only we don't apply that, though, half the time. I mean, I've learned to do that. I have learned to do that. But you're speaking the truth. And, my God. Do you know what, Damo? I could talk to Josh for hours and hours.
Well, to be honest with you, this was kind of my last point that I got for Josh, and you've actually brought it in perfectly, is that now Josh has been through such a life, ups and downs. I'm pretty sure, we're talking about a lot of downs here, but I know that equally Josh has had such fantastic experiences in his life, and he carries on to do so. But now you work in mental health. Josh, why did you choose to go to that route of working in it, and what do you want out of working in mental health? What is your main goal that you're doing this for? Because you either have satisfaction or financial gain in a job normally. And surely this is about satisfaction personally for you as growth.
I mean, I think for me, again, it's some of them experiences where I've sadly lost people around me. Again, mum's line of work's probably contributed to the place that, I am today. But ultimately for me, what I want to do is I would like to see more men step into that space, because I think that's one thing. There's not a great deal of men who go into that line of work, because let's be realistic, you're probably not ever going to be rich in that space, but you'd be rich in other ways, rich in your heart. Yeah. And that's what I enjoy, is I enjoy being able to give parts of myself to people, and, be my real authentic self and say, right, okay, whatever you're going through in this moment, I'm with you, and we'll try and get through it together. There's no better feeling to me, to be honest. It's not just about what we get financially. There's something much greater than that. So my hope is, from my career, is just to be able to help as many people as I possibly can, be able to grow personally, grow professionally. And, if I saved one life during my career, which I'm almost certain I will have contributed to saving at least one life already, which is a great thing. But I will just continue to put myself in a place where I can support people and try and change the end outcome, because that's ultimately what we don't want to see.
Yeah, how wonderful. And I just got to say, Josh, continued success to everything you do, mate. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Not a problem. It's been an absolute pleasure, honestly.
Just before you go, though, Josh, you mentioned you did some rapping, yeah? And I'm not talking wrapping presents. Now,
you wouldn't want to see me wrapping a present, honestly. It's not great.
Same here. Now, I don't know. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Josh, right?
Yeah.
Are you up for a bit of a wrap-off? Because I've been writing lyrics down. Lyrics down, Josh. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you... Damo's crying with laughter. Can you do a rap about Head Cases podcast?
Head Cases podcast. On the spot.
On the spot.
You know what? I used to be great at the freestyling, but putting me under pressure now. You've got my legs tapping a bit here. It's getting a bit shaky, and I'm not sure I can get my words up.
Oh, bless you! Don't you worry. Well, do you want to hear mine?
Yeah, go on. Go ahead.
Okay. We dive deep, no holding back. Destigmatizing, that's our track. From struggles to triumphs, we share it all, empowering each other, standing tall. Head Cases podcast, where voices unite, spreading awareness, shining bright, breaking silence, making noise. Mental health stories, our empowering choice. Thank you.
Quality. That was amazing.
Respect.
That was actually great, and the message was so powerful as well. So listen to them lyrics, because they definitely need to get them within your mind.
I tell you what, mate, if you can come up with a track, we will definitely get it out there. Don't you worry about that.
Well, I think maybe that's something I can put together. I'll work on that for sure, and we will get that put together.
Oh, fantastic. And also, if anybody out there has got a question for Josh for a future episode, because, Josh, you're not getting away that easy. Yeah, we've got WhatsApp. It's 07822 010 810, or you can pop us an email, talk@headcasespodcast.co.uk. All the information is on headcasespodcast.co.uk. Josh, thank you.
Not a problem. As I say, an absolute pleasure, and I wish you all the best. Yeah, if anyone does need to contact me, feel free. Everyone's got a story, and it all carries a powerful message.
Head Cases Podcast, hosted by Damo Sims and Nick Stoppani. Headcasespodcast.co.uk.